Welcome to the Here We Go podcast. Had a little technical issue yesterday. Couldn't get the video I recorded uploaded onto YouTube, so sorry about that. But anyway, we're back to Victory Monday. It is now officially Tuesday, but I'm still celebrating as if it's Monday because, quite honestly, I didn't think we were going to win that game. The Jets are, I think, a little bit of a better team than their record indicates. But clearly there were some things that just weren't working for them. Their offensive line is a big mess, just kind of like ours is here, quite frankly. And I really expected us to need a lot more pressure on Aaron Rodgers and a lot more sacks, and we didn't even get a lot of that, and yet found a way to win. So I'm going to talk about Russ's first start today. So obviously he comes in. Expectations were vastly different compared to, depending on who you talk to. You had some people who thought he was going to come in and play really well and move the ball, and yet others, like myself, who really honestly wasn't expecting a lot out of him because I thought his mobility wasn't going to be good enough to kind of work around how bad this offensive line has been so far. We've seen Justin Fields running for his life a lot of times, and it was honestly better than what I expected. I'm going to put some things into kind of a reality check on this a bit. So I'll talk about the positives first. 264 yards passing, which was a franchise record in a quarterback's first game with the team. Got to respect that. Russ did throw for 2 touchdowns in this game. Again, got to respect that. Started off extremely slow, and I mean extremely slow. The thing that I'll say, you can tell Russ is definitely a true professional. As bad as that start was, he had some balls in the dirt. He was struggling to find guys, getting open. The crowd starts to boo him about 3 series in. Chance for Justin start breaking out in the stadium. And then one deep ball to George Pickens turned the whole thing around. And really the momentum shift, I guess, switched whenever Beanie Bishop gets that first interception late in the first half. But I really thought the deep shot to George Pickens is really kind of what opened up the game for Russ. And you could see him starting to play a little bit better from that point on. And then he really started hitting a bit of momentum there headed into halftime. Gets the touchdown to George Pickens. That was huge. And then in the second half, the offense looked like it really kind of kicked into gear. Russ looked like he really completely kicked into gear. And, I mean, they put up 37 points on this Jets defense that, outside of the DBs, were really kind of the defense that we've seen do a lot of really good things. Quinnen Williams was still there. Of course, he had a pretty decent game. He was a disruptor and had some moments where he was a problem in the backfield, both in the run game and the pass game. Still a great player. Will McDonald, another guy, came off the edge. He was a disruptive at times, but he was a little more quiet than I actually expected him to do. But he's having a fantastic year so far. I think he got his 8th sack in that game. And the linebackers are both very good linebackers for the Jets as well. So I just felt like their front was going to have an advantage against our offensive line. That just didn't hold up the whole game. That secondary was just completely tore apart. I mean, you had all their starters basically missing in that game. They go down a couple of backups even. So you've got second and third string guys everywhere across that secondary. And we really took advantage of it. And that was kind of, I thought, the moral of the story in the passing game, and kind of why right now I'm going to put an asterisk next to this game for Russ, because how much of this was Russ is back to being a decent quarterback in the NFL? How much of this was he was playing against such bad competition that anybody was going to light it up against that secondary? The things that I thought really did open up quite a bit The coaching staff showed a lot of confidence in Russ in the way that they called plays. We saw more deep shots in this game than we've probably seen, I don't know, in 3 games, maybe. I mean, it seemed like we were taking a lot more shots in this game. George Pickens had that crazy juggling catch, which was a really great catch, a big play on that one. He had the other one-handed grab where the first ball where Russ kind of threw that moon ball up, let George use one hand to fight off the DB, the other to catch the ball. That was a big play to kind of get the offense moving. Pat Freiermuth had that phenomenal one-handed catch. I mean, that was a great catch by Freiermuth. And I really thought that the receivers played better in this game. Part of it probably because Russ was playing. Calvin Austin had a real nice catch and run in what was a clear busted coverage where Pickens was kind of heading up the steam and kind of picked off Calvin's defender. I think it was Sauce Gardner at the time, and I'm not sure if there was supposed to be a pass-off between Sauce and the other defender, but either way, no one followed Calvin across the field. And that led to a 36-yard gain. So we had a lot of big plays in this game. And, of course, even Najee Harris ripping some long runs downfield. So the explosive plays were there in that game, and that really meant the difference. The defense pretty much relied on explosive plays because the 2 interceptions were absolutely huge in this game. And Beanie Bishop, man, I was rooting so hard for that guy to get in the end zone after that second one. Undrafted free agent, getting a pick 6 against Aaron Rodgers. That would have been absolutely incredible. In just his 7th game, that would have been amazing. But unfortunately, he gets tackled at 3. Had to settle for somebody else scoring that touchdown to finish that drive off. Great all-around game for the most part. Defense started out slow again. So you've got a slow start for the offense, slow start for the defense. But the difference in this one versus other games that I've talked about is I actually thought there were some subtle coaching adjustments that were made in these games that made all the difference. And I talked about it already on the offense where they started just taking more deep shots downfield. And I thought that was a huge difference in this one. On the other side of the ball, you saw Breece Hall really kind of tearing us apart in the first half in some of these catch-and-type plays where, I mean, he was having a great, unbelievable game receiving. Of course, he had one play amount basically up to 44, I think, yards. But he had like 80 yards receiving in just the first half. And I think the defense started to really try to take away some of that short passing game. Patrick Queen, I thought, played really well. Peyton Wilson, again, he flashed. I mean, he had some good things. He had some lots of good things. But when those 2 guys run sideline to sideline, man, good things, really good things happen there. And I thought that's kind of where they started to take away some of this short game from Breece Hall. You saw some defensive linemen getting their hands up more. Keanu deflection, TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, all those guys had a deflection and a batted down pass in this game. And it really changed a lot of what Rodgers was trying to do, forced him to throw the ball downfield a bit. And that's kind of what changed the game because even Aaron, he had about 177 yards at half and finished the game at, I believe, like 276. So they held him under 100 yards passing in the second half. So clearly made this team one-dimensional because they couldn't run the football effectively. And once they couldn't run the football effectively, you saw our defense really adjust to that and were able to pull out this win. So a great all-around effort. Special teams gets a blocked field goal. Had 2 blocked field goals, to be perfectly honest with you. The call on Minkah Fitzpatrick was absolutely crazy. I mean, there's no way he used any leverage. I can understand if you were at a certain point of view how you could think he maybe used leverage, just the way he kind of flipped his hand off the jersey of that offensive lineman. But I thought he got more of TJ Watt, honestly, than anybody. and didn't really even push off TJ Watt. So I don't know what they were looking at. Either way, great all-around performance. But I think it's encouraging, and it's fair to be encouraging with what we saw from Russell Wilson in this game. I thought Russ did a great job finding open guys. And I'll tell you what, one of the best plays of the day might have been the bootleg where he did the play action bootleg. And coming off the play action, the edge defender was untouched straight into Russ's face. And Russ just basically hurries up and twists his hips and sets his hips and throws a quick ball to Freiermuth coming open across the middle of the field. Man, if he doesn't hit that throw, he probably gets killed because that guy had a free shot. But the way he got rid of the ball, found Freiermuth, let Freiermuth run after the catch, I thought was fantastic. That was a great play. Thought that was another point where you could kind of say maybe Russ started to get his feet wet a little bit. He was moving a lot better than I anticipated. Actually, I thought Russ moved around really well. And it really brings into question, like, how hurt was he really with the calf? There have been some reports that he's been healthy for a few weeks, and they were really just trying to let Justin show him what he was capable of. But Russ moved around really well. I thought he escaped pressures pretty well for the most part. Didn't look to run, which 35-year-old quarterback's probably not going to be looking to run too often. But I thought he did enough to kind of help maneuver the pocket, escape pressure a little bit, find some windows to throw through. A lot to be encouraged by, honestly. It's going to be facing a bad Giants team next week. They have a couple of nice players on the team on defense, but they're not, a very good defense overall. They're okay. Bad team overall. We should be able to really control the clock and have another game where hopefully we put up some good, another 30-point game. Who knows? But I just really thought there's a lot to be encouraged by, but I want to maybe temper expectations a little bit just because the Jets were missing absolutely everybody on the back end. So I'm hopeful. Sometimes some of the balls he was throwing weren't exactly pinpoint accurate throws. The touchdown to George, I think he would like to see that ball out in front of George a little bit more to where the defender couldn't get a hand on it. But you can tell he trusts him. He trusts Pickens to go make that play. A couple deep balls were underthrown, but at times, if you're not past the defender, the underthrow is actually the better throw. If you aren't beating a guy downfield, it's easier for a receiver to adjust to the ball than it is a defender. So some of these quarterbacks will underthrow it intentionally just to kind of give their guy an opportunity to make a play on the ball, where you're not going to really see that from a defensive player. So I thought that was very interesting. Overall, wasn't a perfect day for Russ. Like I said, he started out very, very slow. Probably some rust. Hadn't played in over 10 months. Weathered some booze. And showed he's a true professional out there. So I really thought, from that standpoint, Russ definitely showed like he was a franchise quarterback again, playing to form again. And really, like I've talked about this team really probably needs a quarterback who plays exactly how he did in Denver last year. You want more, but if the defense continues to hold teams and limit scoring, and he does just enough to put up touchdowns instead of field goals, this team can win. And I thought the biggest indicator that you can win with the style of play that Russ was playing with last game, it's that the run game did not open up the passing game. It was actually the other way around. The passing game is what led to the running game. Because we struggled early on to run the football. We couldn't establish anything in the line of scrimmage. But once he started hitting a couple of deep shots, that defense backed off. And you saw Najee Harris starting to find some success in the run game. And he goes over 100 yards for the second week in a row. And, of course, yeah, he does bounce another big run. And I'll tell you what, man, the longer this season goes on, the more I think this team's going to regret not picking up that fifth-year option for Najee Harris. I don't know what we're going to do because right now Jalen hasn't looked like his old self. I thought he looked better in this game than what he's looked like in the past. You could tell he's getting more healthy. Last week when we saw him, I didn't think he looked healthy at that point. I still thought it looked like he had a lingering injury. The explosion wasn't there. His speed didn't look like it was there. And I think we saw some glimpses of it this week, but he still wasn't really effective overall, right? I mean, he had a couple of really nice plays. He had one nice run. He had another nice play off of a short dump pass where he was the check down and Russ gets him the ball and just lets him to go to work. And he does a great job to pick up that first down. I think he had to pick up 8 yards on that one, and he does. And that did kind of look like a vintage Jalen Warren type play. But I'm not sure. I know he's going to be cheap next year if the team wants him to be cheap. I don't know. He's going to have to show me a lot more throughout this season to make me say he should be a featured back. I mean, he outplayed Najee at times last year, but I've always kind of liked the 1-2 punch with him and Najee in there, to the point where I even advocated to keep them both next year. Got some flack for saying that, but I still think if I was going to choose one of these two backs today, I really would like to keep Najee Harris. I think Najee Harris is a franchise 3-down running back if he wants to be. You need that second back to kind of keep a guy fresh, of course, especially in this day and age and the way the team's run, and especially the style that Najee runs the football. But, man, I think he can work in this offense and have a really, really effective season in this offense, especially if the offensive line improves. And by next year, I mean, if you look at getting a guy like Troy Fautanu back, whether or not Broderick Jones is even in the starting lineup, whether I don't know what we're going to do with the left tackle spot. But I really think Mason McCormick looks like he's getting better every week. Frazier looks like a franchise center. Man, I really think we should have picked up the 5th-year option, and I don't know what the market's going to be for Najee Harris. I would have contract talks after the season with him. I would definitely have contract talks with him to bring him back. I think he makes the offense go in a lot of ways, and if people are going to really disagree with that take. But his just war of attrition throughout a game, the way he beats down a defense, man, I really just think you don't need that guy to average 5 yards a carry to help your football team. And when he's healthy and when the offensive line is playing well, we're starting to see now in back-to-back weeks where he's breaking runs. I think he's better than people are going to give him credit for. So that whole thing's going to be interesting to watch play out. But, man, overall, if you're a Steeler fan, 2 games in a row where we're putting up 30-plus points, I don't know if you can ask for more than that. And I think this was the first time since 2020 where we had a 30-point game with 400 yards of total offense. I don't know. 5-2, we have a very, very winnable game this weekend against the Giants. There is a legitimate shot we could be 6-2 at the break going into our bye week, coming out to face a Commanders team that looks a lot better now than they did on paper to start the season, right? And we start into that gauntlet. And yeah, the Bengals still aren't like crushing it right now, but they have improved clearly. Again, the Commanders is going to be a tougher game than people realize. You got 2 games against Baltimore, which Baltimore looks like the best team in football right now, in my opinion. I know Kansas City is the only undefeated team left, but I'll tell you what, I think if Kansas City and Baltimore played again tomorrow, Baltimore wins that game. That offense is cooking. Their defense isn't quite where it needs to be, but the offensive line now finally does look like that offensive line you'd expect out of Baltimore. They look like a much better team. So you're going to be doing a breakdown with Colin, of course, tomorrow. We'll be doing a live at 8 p.m. Lots to talk about from this game that we'll be going into. Hope you all like, share, subscribe. Hope you join us. Give us some of your commentary and tell us what you think, because it's an exciting time to be a Steeler fan. So we'll see you tomorrow. Hope you all have a great day.